next guest from Indianapolis here in the suite at the NFL Combine is someone we met at last year's NFL Combine. Our good friend Dr. Jason Wersland is here. Good to see you, man.
Hey, guys. What's up?
Of course, the founder of Theragun, and you have all kinds of new goodies from last time. Because when did you launch the G2? Because I feel like it was still relatively new.
Right.
Yeah.
Last year?
It was new before.
Yeah, it was August 14th of last year was our actual, announcement and launch. But it took some time for us to get all the inventory and stuff. So it did feel new here last year. For sure.
Right. Yep. And now all of a sudden here we are with the G3.
Yeah.
So I guess let's start with the new fun stuff. Like what sparked? And it was funny because you even said in the conversation last year that, hey, we're already working on some fun stuff. Like we got new stuff. I got new ideas that just didn't make it into this one. So like, what ideas did make it into the G3, and why was it so necessary for you guys to go ahead and keep that innovation going?
It's really interesting because as a chiropractor, these aren't things that I'm aware of until I got into really started building these products.
Right.
And just like any other industry, the technology changes, and it changes really fast. So some of the things that I wanted in the G2 just weren't available. It wasn't possible. Or it was available, but the technology hadn't been cleaned up enough. It hadn't been sophisticated enough to be able to plug it in. So they went on to the next one, adding it into the next one. So the biggest one for me is the noise.
Here's my old G2 Pro. And then here is the G3 Pro on low. Once again, G2 Pro. And then here's the G3 Pro, even on high. You can tell that it is a lot quieter than the G2 Pro. Sure.
I mean, that to be able to make it quieter and insulate the product.
Yep.
The components would melt at lower temperatures. So there's a lot of technical things we had to work around. But the G3 Pro we launched, our official launch was January 7th.
Okay.
And it's been slowly trickling in. All the batteries needed new certifications. The units need new certifications. The chargers need new certifications. So our launch date was Gen 7, but to get it into different ports from like New York, Florida, Long Beach, each one of them treat it differently. So we were kind of we were stranded for a little bit.
Wow. Gotcha. So, yeah, the noise was obviously the big thing, and everybody talked about that. It's certainly a lot quieter now when you use it, even at low and high speed. That was another thing you added, too, right? The two speeds.
Yeah. And actually, it's really interesting. I think this will be something fun to share. Last year when I was here, I knew we were about 80% done with the G3 Pro, meaning a lot of the specs, the design, how I wanted it to look, the motor. But there were some specific things that we had that I just didn't feel right about yet. One of them was the angle of that arm. I didn't want it to be just a 90 from here.
Right.
You can see how if I lay that out, it kicks out just a little bit.
Yep.
So I actually had a conversation with two different therapists that are here for the Combine. And it's easy. Then I can go to them, and they're in the same place rather than flying to Canada and Phoenix.
Yep.
So I had a chance to sit down and have a conversation with them, and it kind of vetted out a lot of the concerns I had, and it gave us a really good starting point for that angle of the head, which is really important for a lot of the things you're doing. And then the slow speed. I was actually in this hotel last year picking up some units that we'd loaned to another specialty training facility from Dallas, and they were missing 2 units when we picked the Pelican case up, and I'm like, where are the other 2 units? And he goes, they're down the hall, they're with Dan Pfaff. And I was like, oh man, because I've heard about this guy, and he's got a really good name for himself, and he's pretty smart. So I was thinking, what was he doing with it? Walked in, he had him sitting on 2 tables in his room. He had a big suite like this. He invited me in, and we started talking. And the first thing he said is, you ever thought about having 2 speeds? And I said, I'm going to be honest with you. There's no one that's been able to explain to me why I need 2 speeds. So we had a half-an-hour conversation about what that is, and I left there realizing we need 2 speeds, and I knew almost exactly what the frequency had to be.
Gotcha.
So what was the convincing argument?
He said he kind of threw at me. He said, I'm going to say one thing and you tell me what you think about this. He said, Russian stem. And all of a sudden my mind just started going. And I realized, yeah, it's the same sort of response. You're trying to get a deeper tissue response and help the body heal itself, and especially with acute injuries. So he said, imagine Russian stem on acute injuries.
Okay, so I'm going to not just play dumb. I am dumb here. What is Russian stem? Russian
stem is... You guys know what E-stem, like electrical stimulation, is. That usually runs at a really high frequency, and its depth is very shallow in the muscles. So the way it works electronically, and it stimulates the muscles, contracts the muscles, and is supposed to do certain outcomes.
Gotcha.
The Russian stem doesn't. Sometimes when you turn up E-stem, it kind of hurts a little bit.
Yep. Yeah.
The Russian stem, you could crank that up to a really high frequency. Its penetration is much deeper, and it works on different charges of the muscle. So I could load that thing on my quad and crank it up, and I won't have any sort of pain stimulation, but it's locking up that muscle. It looks like it hurts.
Right.
But its job is to stimulate the body in kind of these sporadic punches.
Yep.
And it's a deeper penetration. So when he said that, I realized what he was meaning. And he said this would be great for acute injuries.
Yep.
I've tried to use the Theragun, the G2, on like recently sprained shoulders, ankles, hamstrings, and it's too much. And I've known it's too much. So I have to put like my hand there or a pad, or I have to use something else that's not quite as noxious is the word we use. So that's what happened. And we took it back. I had a prototype made. I started working on it and fine-tuning that frequency of what it was doing with the amplitude.
Yeah. So what are the amplitudes and frequencies now?
So the two frequencies we have now, one is 2400 RPM, and the other one's 1750 RPM.
Okay.
Same amplitude on both of them.
Okay.
And it's just really what you're trying to do. We've created a whole educational course that I can show you. But
that's one of our questions we were going to ask you about.
Yeah. A lot of what I do now when I travel around is.
And by the way, so people know, if you're listening to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, SoundCloud, wherever it is, if you go to YouTube, you'll be able to see, one, Jason has a gun here with him. If you haven't seen the G3, but also now showing us the actual, did it say the Master Trainer Summit?
Yeah, it's
nice.
we did this actual one was made for Master Trainer Summit we did in Malaga, Spain.
Nice.
That's where I just came from.
Gotcha.
So we now create, we call it education, but it's just simple information about how to use it for clinicians in both a clinic setting and a performance setting. We've got a lot of information coming back that helps us understand specifically what you're getting out, what you want from the muscle before you perform, work out, train, whatever, during your training, on the rest periods, or between sets and stuff like that, and then how to use it for recovery. And we just explain all of that in this manual. And then we have, what's really cool is at the back, we have these case studies. So you can see like that one. Jennifer is a 29-year-old, blah, blah, blah. And then we walk through and teach, like, what do you do when you have sciatica? What do you do if you have carpal tunnel? What if you do if you have shoulder sprain strain? And we talk about that. And then what's kind of cool about this, and this took a lot of work, is when you get to a certain point in this process of each case study, I actually have videos from physicians from around the world. London, Spain, Serbia, America, Canada, and you get an opportunity to watch how other people use the product. That's a really, really important point to me, that I don't know everything about this thing. I've used it for 12 years, and I feel like I've had an opportunity to have a lot of success with it, but I also go and visit Brett Fisher in Phoenix, and I watch how he uses it, and I never thought of using it the way he uses it. So from plantar fasciitis to literally using it on an ACL repair, like on the ACL, days after that they're done, to be able to stimulate the tissue. And
days after the surgery.
Yeah, literally. It's cool. So I want that information. I want to share that with everyone. And if I'm spreading the word, like I'm going, tomorrow I'm actually going out to Indiana State University to teach 42 fourth-year PT students how to use the product.
Right.
I mean, so I would love to stand up, share some information with them, but also say, hey, you guys aren't going to get an opportunity to listen to 4 or 5 other physicians from around the world about how they're using this. So I think that's real important if we get an opportunity as a brand to share this information, that it's not one-sided, that it's not biased. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Absolutely. That's really cool.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. I mean, how do people, or when will this roll out so that people can sign up for these courses?
It's rolling out now.
Okay.
Yeah, it's open. We've done 2 in New York. I'm doing 1 in Chicago on Sunday. This coming Sunday.
I know. I want you to come to Richmond at some point.
It literally is just a matter of us coordinating, making sure that the right people are invited. That's a really important thing, that they've got to. They need to come with the attitude of learning.
Right.
Sometimes you get people in these settings with a new product like this. They almost want to challenge it.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean.
It's not about that.
Right.
You know, I don't know how most people are, but I have to be in a really cool, calm environment to learn. And when you've got this weird energy of someone challenging the teacher and stuff, it just doesn't work. There's places for that, and I get it all the time on Instagram and stuff where people want to kind of come at us a little bit, and I'm fine with that, because that's how people learn. I mean, I have paradigm shifts in my own life and a lot of other things, and it's because I get frustrated, and then finally I bust through, and it's like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. But
these sort of classes aren't necessarily for that. So if you want to do them, I mean, I'm sure there's people that are going to ask this, because I did a podcast with the Wadcast, and they started asking them the same thing because this came up.
Yep.
We're not holding back.
Yeah.
The tough thing is I had a guy earlier today say you should put this online. But the tough thing is there's hands-on parts of this. Like there's a portion of this that's hands-on. And whether it's me or someone else that's there helping me teach the class, you kind of have to understand that there's an art to this as well.
Yeah,
you guys know you've been using it. So
absolutely. Everything
it's being able to explain that as well. You can't do that over the internet.
Yeah, and honestly, like, if all you're willing to do is invest in an online course to further your education, then you should step out of the game, because you gotta,
like how you say that.
You gotta get in front of people and listen to their stories and listen to the why behind it, and and then challenge respectfully, but challenge, hey, how did you come up with this? What does Russian stem mean, right? All those things. And that's how we learn. Like I always tell Craig, like, you can't just go to educational opportunities where they're just going to regurgitate and repeat all the things you already know, because you're never going to grow. You got to get outside of your box, and you got to push yourself in a situation where maybe you feel uncomfortable, but you're going to learn a little bit from, okay, I had this kind of thought process behind the product, but now I can kind of see where it is applicable and where I could use it.
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad we're talking about education. There's one of the things that I don't think people value enough, and I recognize every time I do this, is as a chiropractor, I'm touching you.
Right.
And I'm in your space.
Yep.
And I'm in spaces where sometimes other people aren't touching you.
Right.
And we have to connect. You have to trust me. I have to trust you. It's a process.
Yep.
And that you can't do that over on a Skype call.
No way.
So, you know what I mean? So to be able to have this available online, we'll definitely have principles online.
Sure.
We'll share a lot of the studies. We've got 3 or 4 studies right now that are literally just coming out. One's talking about being able to improve your broad jump. Mm-hmm. There's information that's really cool and easily shared online. But the specifics of how to use this, there's just something about connection that you can't do through an online course. So
I agree with that 100%.
Glad you said that. That's a good way to
so
say
tell us a little bit about some of the new toys, because I remember last year you actually had the wedge attachment, but it wasn't released yet. So tell us about the thought process behind that wedge attachment.
Yeah. So this is a G3. I got to turn this on just so you can hear it.
Oh, that is. I want to get back to the noise thing in a second.
Yeah. So it's got 2 speeds. The top, this is about low. That's high. This is kind of cool too. The way these pop out.
Yeah, I do like those. And which is again, like, I think one of the things that I like about the gun is that it comes with 2 batteries. So when one goes out, you can charge that one and put the other one right back in. You don't have to plug it into the wall.
Yeah, without question. And the way that battery pops out too, it just makes it easy to carry around. It's not a large product. It's something that is fairly compact and can fit in a drawer in your gym or wherever it is if you want to keep it. A drawer by your bed if you have a bedside table.
It's super cool. And that charger, look how small that charger is now.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's huge.
So there's a lot of little things that we were able to, with any other product. I mean, even cars and shoes and hats and clothes, anything, you find pain points. Like, man, that sleeve doesn't seem to fit right, or the car charger is in a weird place. So people learn. We learned that was too big. That footprint was way too big for sitting at your nightstand.
You're right.
The cord was too short.
Is that like A wireless one too? So a portable charger?
No, it actually has it's got a cord that plugs in the back. It's a really subtle cord. It's really cool. We've also just released a stand. So the G3 Pro will actually sit in a stand right next to your nightstand.
That's really nice.
That's really cool.
And it'll charge through that stand, so you don't necessarily always have to exchange the battery.
Nice.
So for a therapist, that's just kind of a home and also a charging spot where you can just pull it back and forth. You don't have to worry about the battery.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
Back to the wedge. The wedge that I've created for the G2 actually fit on the G2.
I'll be your mic stand here.
It actually fit on the G2 this way. So it went, I don't know, what was that? The Y-axis?
Yeah.
And then, so I flipped
That's
it.
your department.
Yeah.
I flipped it. So I realized when you're treating yourself, having it the other way was tough. I really had to kind of contort my wrist to get to where I wanted to.
Yes.
This now can get right in the spots that I need it to.
I see.
And I found my leverage when I'm working on clients. I wanted that little corner, and to be able to get in that corner with this leverage from that point rather than doing it the other way.
Yeah.
So we flipped it, and it's been a really cool thing. The wedge was probably, I think I mentioned this when we were on the last podcast, but that took me the longest to create. I always knew what I wanted, but the first one, the edge was too sharp and it would stab you. Right. There's a lot of little things you kind of learn.
Who's your testing dummy?
I have people at the office that I'll literally just grab and pull them.
Hey, try this.
No more.
And Sam Darnold last year was one of the first people I actually used the wedge on, and he was sitting in the chair here. Was it here last year?
Yeah, I think so.
He was sitting in the chair, and I started using it on him. And those guys don't they're not paying attention to that. Their mind's usually on something else.
Right.
And I remember he turned and looked at me and goes, "What is that thing?" And he felt the difference with the wedge, and I was getting through on his shoulder in areas and spaces that I couldn't with some of the other rounded tips.
Right.
So to be able to get right in there made a big difference around the shoulder blade.
Yeah, I have a subscap thing going on, and I just imagine that would be one hell of a solution.
Yeah.
So here's a big question, right? Because we talked about Russian stem and we talked about subscap. There are people out there who don't know what that is, but they want to learn more about Theragun. Is it going to be appropriate for them? Like, can they come and learn something without feeling intimidated by the information?
Absolutely. We actually have 4 different training courses.
Perfect.
This one that I just shared with you guys is what we call our advanced course. Massage therapists, acupuncturists, osteos. I'm just thinking of the people that were in Spain. Osteos, physios, athletic trainers, people that are in that space.
Yeah.
And then we have a trainer's course that is for personal trainers.
Yep.
One of the things that really is probably the biggest difference is depending on the state and the country, you have to be really careful about crossing the line of treating someone.
Yep.
For example, in New York, trainers cannot touch one of their clients with anything.
With anything.
Like a foam roller,
Can they hand it to them?
Yeah. Yes.
So you can hand it to them and say, hit your quads.
So in our course that we taught in New York for the athletic trainers, personal trainers is like, okay, this is how you're going to teach your client to use it on themselves, and you hand it off to them.
Yep, absolutely.
So it's really important. We have to.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of already doing that because I think I told you last year, like, one of the reasons why I did it was from a logistics standpoint and a legal standpoint, I need to be able to get into the psoas and glute med and all that. And if I'm doing that on a 15, 16-year-old girl, that could look pretty bad.
Yeah.
Right? So I give them the gun. I say, hey, look, this is your glute med.
Yep.
Hit your glute med. And that's just my way of protecting myself. You just got to be smart with it, you know?
And I think
the law thing is just throwing me for a trip because I have so many clients who would just, like, not show up. Like, they like the workout, but getting stretched at the end, like the part where they actually feel good and don't hate themselves, that's the part they actually enjoy about an hour session.
Yep.
They're waiting for the end
now.
Yeah.
Waiting for the end.
Yeah.
Right.
But anyway.
So there's a really important aspect, I think, that is conducive to that whole concept. We have part of some of the education we talk about how deep or how much pressure you apply.
Right.
Well, the standard pressure is it's just resting on me. So if I just rest this on me, we call that number 1.
Okay.
Number 5 is different between even just the 3 of us. Mm-hmm. So if I dig into me, I can probably handle something different than you can.
Yep.
And you go from a lineman to your 16-year-old client you had.
Yeah.
There's totally different pressures of 5.
Yep.
So what happens usually is if I have to get in there, I'll usually hand it even to my client that I'm treating and say, let me know. I'll keep my hand on the unit.
Yeah.
Say they're getting in their hip flexor.
Yeah.
I'll keep my hand on. I get an idea how much pressure they're applying. I'll tell them to leave their hand there, but let me drive.
Yeah.
There's no difference,
right.
I think, other than just my hand is not on the unit when you hand it to someone else.
Yep.
They can kind of decide how much pressure they're applying. The important part is the timing. That's where people get messed up. It feels so good.
They want to do more of it.
Yeah. They think, oh, my gosh, if a little bit's good, then a lot
right.
has to be way better.
Yep.
But for performance,
yep.
it's short bursts. You're activating the nervous system. You're not trying to...
Right. Relax it.
Yeah, you don't want to downregulate the nervous system
right.
before you go out and play a game.
Yeah,
especially
absolutely.
Think of hockey. Like if you gave a guy a full body massage before he got on the field, the ice, he's worthless.
Yeah.
You want to stimulate that nervous system. So that's kind of the concepts we talk about in our education.
Right. Cool.
Even if it's advanced, the trainer's course, and then we have a very basic course that I teach at a yoga class. So I walk in, 30-minute course, teach people how to from basically move to sleep and how to use this in their life to just relax at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So that's super easy.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. And I loved my G2. However, I was banned from using it in my gym
from the
noise. And obviously
you're probably the only one in the world that ever happened to. I'm kidding.
Yeah, no. And the other thing, too, I mean, from a business standpoint, you guys obviously had a big competitor that came out with a very quiet product in Hyperice. Mm-hmm. So just from a pure business standpoint, how important was it for you to make sure that this G3 solved that problem?
Our G3 had to be right.
Yep.
Yeah.
It had to be right for many reasons. I think we talked about this, too, but the G3 Pro is my 7th version.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And in my mind, I should have got the sound a while ago. But everyone we worked with, they wanted to change the parameters. They wanted to change the amplitude and the frequency. And I said, that's what we are, so you can't do that. So along the way, I just had to accept the noise.
Right.
And I was okay with it because if you're treating someone, they don't care. The minute it touches them,
right, they
don't care. I put Bose sound-canceling headphones on or whatever, but the guy next to you is like, what the hell are you doing over there?
Yep.
Yeah.
So I understand.
always construction in the gym. No, it's not. It's just Craig getting his client's hamstring fixed.
Seriously, try and use this in a tennis setting.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
Warm up at a golf course.
I was asked to leave many times. Can you take that outside?
Yep.
But we worked with, I had consultants from a Formula One racing team that helped us kind of talk through some of those things, a guy from NASA, but more importantly, we worked with a guy from MIT. He's a sound engineer, and he actually was instrumental in Bose speakers. Mm-hmm. And you think about the way he saw that, he had to think small product, big noise. Mm-hmm. He's doing the total opposite with us.
Right.
So he had to reverse engineer everything. That took most of the time to be able to figure out how to maintain our torque, how to maintain the movable head, the rotating arm, and how to maintain our amplitude and still have it be quiet. It was a tough task. And this guy, I'm kind of getting lost in my thoughts right now because I'm just thinking of how many times he almost said, this is not going to work. We can't do this. But when he first got it, it was like,
Eureka.
It was like, I'm trying to think, like, imagine your best Christmas when you were little. It's that times 100. It was awesome. But back to your point, it had to be right. But more importantly, it had to be right for us as a brand. It had to maintain ergonomics. It still has to balance. That's one of the things that I wanted, is I want to be able to have that balance on one finger. It's so important when you're, especially as a therapist, if you're going to use this thing off and on all day, day after day, you can't rely on your own leverage as points through your wrist and your elbow. It's got to come a lot from the unit. Yeah. So the angles that we created on here were for those reasons, but that insulation that they put in the front end of this thing was big for us. Yeah. It made it really cool.
Absolutely.
Decibels are half of what they were before, which is really amazing. I mean, to go half off. And I'm already trying to work on a way to make it even quieter.
Right. Yeah.
So I mean,
which leads nicely into the final question. What's next now? You know, you gave us the unbeknownst preview to the G3 last year. What is in the works for Theragun as a company?
Man, you put me on the spot.
Moving forward,
we're constantly innovating. And when I say we've grown a lot as a company. We have an office and a person that works for us in London. It's been a lot of fun to watch this grow. I spend a lot of my time right now on studies and making sure that we can validate this information. I had a guy the other day say, if you're a clinician and you're treating patients, you can affect hundreds of lives.
Yep.
But if you can validate something through a study and share it through journals, you're literally going to affect millions of people's lives.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That was kind of a paradigm shift for me, and I really got excited about about a month ago, to really start locking in on some of these studies, especially around what we're claiming it does, what we've seen it do.
Right.
But one of the things that we want to do is make this sort of technology affordable to people.
Uh-huh.
And that's kind of where our focus has been.
Right.
Is there a way to take this information, this kind of science, and make it in a product that's affordable for my mom and her friends that, need something like this kind of throughout their day, and they don't have time to jump in their car and go get a massage or someone treat them with the professional grade Theragun. So that's kind of where we're going. I have to be careful because if I knew dates, I would tell you guys. But
I get it. No stress.
A lot of my time is on performance development, like creating products that everyone can use. I mean, my ultimate goal when I started doing this in 2008 was when I created the first one. I met my business partner at the end of 2015, and he said, "What's your goal?" And my goal wasn't to make millions of dollars, have photos with celebrities. I literally wanted this to be in everyone's hands, like a pencil sharpener was in the 80s.
Yeah.
I wanted everyone to have one. So when you walked into your buddy's house, you'd be like, "Hey, bro, where's your Theragun?"
Right.
Instead of, "Where's your pencil sharpener?"
Right.
So that's ultimately what we want, and I'm constantly trying to think of ways to be able to do that, whether it's getting on a TV show and having people understand what this technology does for your body. It helps you move. And that's one of the biggest problems we have, especially in America. Absolutely. Is people don't move enough.
Yep.
I was watching this documentary the other day with Wayne Gretzky and Jerry Rice and Pele, and they were talking about what made them so good was they played. Like, they played with their friends. Yep. They went out and messed around on the ice, and it wasn't like someone's yelling at them, they got to take 400 shots. It's like, we probably took 400 shots because we were playing all day. And kids don't do that anymore. They don't move. There's big industry in the gaming industry, but people are sitting on their, can I swear?
Yeah.
Sure, it's a podcast. You can do whatever the hell you want.
You do whatever you want.
People are sitting on their ass.
That's not that bad.
You know what I mean? So that's the biggest problem, I think, is people just don't move. And when they do, unfortunately, they're not intuitively educated to understand that you got to warm the tissue up, and then you have to loosen the joints up, and they have to move. And that's a process.
Yep.
This thing makes it much shorter and quicker.
Yep.
So that's kind of what we're doing, trying to focus on something that's a little bit more affordable. Does that give you enough?
That's awesome. I'll tell you the second question I get after, like, why is it so loud, is how much does it cost? And that almost gets a worse response than the
it's like a 1-2 punch.
Right. Yeah, but hey, the product itself, and people I think who listened to the pod last year, and obviously if you listen to what you just said, like the knowledge and the thought that has gone into this product is outstanding. It is worth the prices it can be if you can afford it. It is unbelievable product, and we are excited to get to talk to you again, and we'll get to see about the G4 next year, I guess, or whenever. You said that there's some dates in mind. If there's something else coming before the combine, give us a call.
I'll reach out to you guys for sure. I was just trying to look for my phone real quick. I got to show you. We came up with an app.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, and it's pretty awesome. So one of the things that I want is I shouldn't say because it's really the people that work at our company that kind of have the same vision. But if you can imagine, I'm going to show that to the camera.
That's cool.
If you pop this open, this is available on the App Store. So it's super easy. So say you buy one, and you're like, what's a good one? You guys point.
Let's go
with Cramps.
Cramps?
I was going to go with sleep, because that's your next thing, Chris.
Sleep, yeah. He's going to go in and take a nap for 3 days, I guess.
Yep.
So basically what you do, you open up, hit sleep, and then it talks you through this. Treat your sleep as non-negotiable. And these tips in here are just things that I tell people. I tell my patients in my rooms. Mm-hmm. They're literally things that I tell them. Mm-hmm. So the concept here is you're trying to put your body, this vessel that we are in, we're trying to put it into a state of rest.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And if you're jacked up on coffee all day,
yep,
and you come home and you've been stressed about work, because we all are,
yep,
yeah,
our nervous system and our brain is trying to solve those problems, even subconsciously.
Yep.
And if you can't give your body a rest, then you're not going to be able to be as productive the next day. So this kind of talks you through the body experiences increased cell turnover, and it kind of just gives a basic information of what happens.
Yeah, that's
and then
good.
you go to the next one. So you scroll to the next one.
Uh-huh.
And then it says 2 minutes a night can change your sleep. Here's a tip. Because you're trying to down-regulate your nervous system. That's what you want to do. You're turning it off. You need it to go to sleep. Remember that you can spend up to 2 minutes on a really relaxed muscle. So this is super easy information that we've provided.
Yeah,
cool.
That's
and
awesome.
it's just 1, 2, 3.
Yep.
But people can download this.
Yeah, we'll put a
It's
link
really cool.
to the app in the episode description.
Yeah.
So if you're
Plantar's a big one.
Whether it's YouTube, that episode description, or on Apple Podcasts or whatever, we'll make sure we include a direct link to the app.
Isn't that cool?
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And I'll throw a screenshot on the YouTube video of that as
the
well.
podiatrist at UCLA actually helped us build the protocols for this.
For the plantar?
He teaches plantar fasciitis all the time.
Yeah, I just
treats it.
I just had to teach it to my dad last night because he's got plantar. He's like, I don't know, I don't think I can fix it. I just gotta live with it. I said, no. Here's what you do.
Isn't that crazy? Like you see
And then-
people,
and
you're
then he was like-
it's not. Don't accept this.
Yeah. Oh, I've never accepted pain. That's like, somebody please fix me.
Yeah.
Now I get to go to the app and grab my Theragun.
Simple.
Cool.
Well, anything else that people should know? Obviously, the app.
Website. Our website we're redoing. There's going to be a lot more information on there. We've realized that, in a humble way, I feel like we kind of created this handheld percussive therapy kind of world.
Absolutely.
Percussion and vibration's been around for centuries, like we talked about, I think, last year. But it's just really kind of understanding that. And then a lot of this isn't intuitive. For some people it is. I think for athletes especially, they've been worked on by so many different people in so many different settings. It's like you hand it to them and they kind of know, like, I could get like 50% of this without you telling me anything.
Yeah.
But really, from our website to our educational modules to our app, it's really just about spreading the information so that people realize, in a basic sense, Theragun, our body has tension, whether it's self-induced, stress-induced, whatever it is, we all have tension. And Theragun and the percussive therapy from Theragun relieves that tension. Done. That's my elevator pitch.
There it is.
There you go.
Yeah. So if people understand I have tension and they go to something else rather than pills, that's really our ultimate goal. So they understand, hey, there is an alternative to get rid of some of this stress or tension, and percussive therapy is amazing because it doesn't take more than 15 seconds to do that.
Right.
Yeah. Well, with that elevator pitch, they can go to Theragun.com.
Theragun.com.
All right.
Yep.
Dr. Jason Wersland, founder, creator of the Theragun, on one of our favorite guests right here on the Chairman's Best Podcast.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.